Hi there, Rebecca Koffler was censored but not silenced. We've had a major development today. We're basically officially right now at war with Russia. The Russia-Ukraine conflict is escalating rapidly. And what happened today is that the conflict has now progressed into a strategic level. We know that President Biden authorized Ukrainian President Zelensky to use U.S.-supplied weapons ATACMS to strike deep inside Russia. Well, Putin has responded, and his response was unequivocal. Let me unpack to you what this response means, because a lot of people, even in the Pentagon, they don't understand how the Russians think, and they don't understand the Russian dictator's mindset. So what happened today, the Russians fired an ICBM into Ukrainian city of Dnipropetrovsk. What is an ICBM? It's an Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. Intercontinental ballistic missiles were designed for nuclear strikes. I repeat, ICBM is designed to wage nuclear war. Okay? So we are right now in a qualitatively different, very different type of conflict. The reason why Russia and the US right now are at war, it's because, as Putin explained the other day, the ATACMS by themselves, they don't fire, they require targeting and the whole programming support to make sure that the missile flies in the right trajectory and hits the right target. That requires US personnel and US satellites. So this is why Putin took it into the next rung of what we call the escalation ladder in the intelligence community. Many of you know at this point that I'm a former DIA intelligence officer. Spent my intelligence career on the Russian target. So let me give you the characteristics of this particular weapon. The weapon is actually called RS-26 Rubezh. That's what the Russians call it. It's a solid fueled rocket propelled missile with a range up to 5,500 kilometers, which is about 3,420 miles. A lot of the people in the Pentagon are crowing right now that no, this is not an ICBM. Well, it's not that simple. Rubezh is a very unique weapon. It's actually both. It's an ICBM and it's an intermediate range type of missile. So what the Pentagon is trying to do right now is minimize the situation that we're in by saying, and they're telling it to major legacy networks, do not worry, this is an intermediate range. Well, it's both. Let me tell you how it is both, because the Russians designed it to be both. The Rangers just barely made it into an ICBM category. The reason is because the Russians wanted it to be accountable to the New START Treaty. Well, the New START Treaty is designed for peacetime, but the Russians do everything possible to make sure that technically they are compliant, but they still can prosecute the mission at wartime. So what they've done with Rubezh is they tested it at much lower ranges because this missile was designed specifically to target US and NATO forces in Europe and to target European capitals. Okay, and so they tested it at much lower ranges, violating the intermediate nuclear forces. Okay, so they were technically in compliance with the START. They violated the INF. Another characteristic of this missile is that it is dual use. So what they used in Ukraine, what they struck Dnipropetrovsk with, is a conventional warhead, okay? But it can also be outfitted with a nuclear warhead that could be sent to Europe. The ICBM flight time is typically from Russia is about 40 minutes to the United States. So we don't have much time to react. And former Secretary of State Clinton once revealed classified information. I'm not going to reveal, but I'm not going to repeat it. But if you look it up, she revealed how much time a U.S. Commander-in-Chief actually has to push the button if we had the warning of an ICBM flying towards the United States. And I repeat, the flight time of an ICBM from Russia to the United States is 40 minutes. To Ukraine, it took 10 minutes to fly. To London, it is 15 minutes flight time. So you can do the math. Why did Putin do that? Putin is strategic signaling. That is a term in the Russian military doctrine and strategy. Strategic signaling. He's signaling to Washington to knock it off, meaning stop supplying ATACMS to Ukraine, withdraw the permission to strike deep inside Russia, or else. What is or else? So today, Rubesh is outfitted with conventional warhead, meaning there's no nuclear payload. Okay, so it's a standard ballistic missile. Tomorrow, what Putin is saying, I'm going to fire a nuclear warhead into Ukraine, and you can imagine the fallout is going to propagate not only throughout the Ukraine, but possibly into Russia and into Europe. Now, some people may say, well, Putin is not insane because the wind can blow towards Russia. Well, that is a tactical nuclear warhead, right? Which means that the fallout is relatively small. It's an under 1 kiloton type of warhead, which for comparison, what the United States dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were about 10, 15 kilotons, right? And nevertheless, Hiroshima and Nagasaki never ceased to exist. Life came back within 2 years, right? But what Putin knows that the Russians have experienced Chernobyl, they have a higher tolerance for this type of stuff happening. But Putin knows that Americans and Europeans are not used for that type of stuff. There's going to be panic if he starts doing something like that, and that would plunge the US and the European economy, so he can basically win the war without fighting. So this is a very, very alarming behavior. We are at a point right now when the United States and Russia, have climbed up so high on the escalation ladder that psychologically it's very difficult for them to climb down because neither one wants to hand victory to the other. It's like it's two fighters and two men typically, and you have pride involved. You have, it's basically boils down as whose is bigger. And I'm using this metaphorical, term. It's basically what President Trump said. Whose button is bigger and whose works. We're talking about men and war fighting, and I'm all about warfare, and I'm a huge MMA fan, and I love watching the two guys fight and go at it. But let me be clear, nuclear war is not the type of domain where you want to prove whose is bigger and whose works. So this needs to stop immediately. This is exactly why Putin lowered the nuclear threshold for the employment of nuclear weapons in response to Biden's authorization to Zelensky to strike deep inside Russia. They're prepared for it. They have an entire strategy that Russia spent 20 years since Putin became president to wage this war in a completely very different manner, not starting with nuclear, but starting very slow with non-kinetic cyber space warfare strikes. We wargamed it back in the intelligence community. I actually wrote a book about it. where at the unclassified level, I describe Putin's strategy. It's called Putin's Playbook, Russia's Secret Plan to Defeat America. I'm going to have an update coming out in March. So this is serious business. Please pay attention right now. And remember, who got us into this situation? When American boys who are now operating that weaponry in Ukraine, when they end up in Putin's nuclear furnace, remember who authorized that. This is Rebecca Koffler with Censored But Not Silenced. Follow me on all social media at Rebecca0132. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, Truth, Getter, Twitter, and all of them. Thank you, and I'll catch you later.